The crowd roared. It was July 13th, another scorching summer day in Butler, Pennsylvania. Former President Donald Trump, a familiar figure on the campaign trail, was back. He was rallying for another shot at the White House. The energy was electric. Supporters, decked out in red, white, and blue, cheered his every word, but in a heartbeat, the festive atmosphere turned into a scene of sheer terror. Gunshots. Panic surged through the crowd. People screamed, ducking for cover, trampling over each other to escape the chaos. The air filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder. Confusion reigned. Was it fireworks? A car backfiring? The horrifying reality sunk in. Someone was shooting at the former president. Witnesses later described the scene as surreal, a nightmare unfolding in broad daylight. One minute they were caught up in the thrill of the rally, the next they were running for their lives. The shooting left an indelible mark on those present, a chilling reminder of how quickly peace can turn to violence. In the aftermath of the shooting, one question loomed large. Who was the shooter? The authorities identified him as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, a resident of Butler. Crooks, it turned out, was no stranger to firearms. He had visited a local shooting range just days before the rally. Little else was known about him. He was described by neighbors as quiet, a loner who kept to himself. Investigators began piecing together his life, examining his online activity, searching for clues to his motive. His social media profiles painted a disturbing picture, filled with violent imagery and extremist rhetoric. The investigation into Crooks' background revealed a troubled young man consumed by anger and resentment. He felt isolated, ignored, and left behind. Online, he found solace in a sense of belonging in extremist forums where his hatred festered and his violent fantasies took root. News of the shooting spread like wildfire, dominating headlines and sparking outrage across the nation. But the reactions were far from unified. America, already deeply divided along political lines, seemed to fracture even further. For some, the shooting was a horrifying attack on democracy itself, a stark reminder of the fragility of American institutions. They called for unity, for a rejection of violence, and for a return to civil discourse. Others, however, saw the incident through a partisan lens. Trump supporters, many of whom saw him as a victim of relentless attacks from the left, expressed outrage and fear. They pointed fingers at what they perceived as a climate of hostility towards conservatives, fueled by the media and political opponents. The shooting, they argued, was the inevitable consequence of this toxic environment. The shooting immediately raised alarming questions about security at the rally. How did the shooter, armed and dangerous, manage to get so close to the former president? The Secret Service, tasked with protecting the lives of high-profile individuals like Trump, faced intense scrutiny. Lawmakers demanded answers. How could such a blatant security breach occur? Were there failures in intelligence gathering, threat assessment, or on-site security protocols? The incident exposed potential vulnerabilities in the system designed to protect America's leaders. The Secret Service launched an internal investigation, vowing to leave no stone unturned. They reviewed security footage, interviewed witnesses, and analyzed their own actions leading up to the event. The nation waited anxiously for answers, hoping to understand how this could have happened and how to prevent such a tragedy from occurring again. Section 5. The Secret Service, a legacy tarnished? The pressure on the Secret Service mounted with each passing day. The agency, once revered for its professionalism and unwavering dedication to protecting the president, found its reputation hanging in the balance. The shooting at the Trump rally was not just a security failure, it was a blow to the agency's core identity. In an unprecedented move, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle admitted to Congress that the agency had failed to prevent the assassination attempt. She acknowledged the gravity of the situation, calling it the most significant operational failure in decades. Cheatle's admission, while a necessary step towards accountability, did little to quell the storm of criticism. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle grilled her, demanding explanations for the security lapses and assurances that such a failure would never happen again. The future of the Secret Service and its ability to regain the public's trust remained uncertain. Section 6. Pointing fingers, the political blame game. As the investigation into the shooting unfolded, the blame game began. Politicians, pundits, and the public engaged in a heated debate, each side seeking to exploit the tragedy for political gain. The shooting became yet another battleground in America's deeply polarized political landscape. Some Democrats, while condemning the violence, pointed to the inflammatory rhetoric often employed by Trump and his supporters. They argued that his words had created a climate of intolerance and hostility, emboldening individuals like Crooks to act on their hatred. Republicans, in turn, accused the left of hypocrisy, pointing to instances of violence and threats against conservatives. They argued that the left had created a false narrative, portraying Trump supporters as dangerous extremists, and that this demonization had contributed to the climate of fear and division. Section 7. Healing the Divide, a call for unity. In the wake of the shooting, amidst the political posturing and finger-pointing, some voices emerged calling for unity and healing. They recognized that the deep divisions plaguing American society had created a fertile ground for hatred and violence. Religious leaders, community activists, and even some politicians from both sides of the aisle pleaded for a return to civility and respect. They urged Americans to listen to each other, to find common ground, and to reject the politics of division and demonization. Their calls for unity, however, often felt drowned out by the cacophony of anger and blame. The shooting in Butler, it seemed, had only served to deepen the chasm dividing Americans, leaving many wondering if true healing was even possible. Protecting the future lessons learned. The attempted assassination of former President Trump served as a stark wake-up call, forcing the nation to confront uncomfortable truths about its own vulnerabilities. The incident exposed flaws in security protocols, highlighted the dangers of escalating political rhetoric, and underscored the need for greater vigilance in the face of extremism. One of the most immediate lessons learned was the need to strengthen security measures for public figures. The Secret Service, in response to the shooting, announced a series of reforms aimed at improving threat assessment, enhancing communication between agencies, and tightening security protocols at public events. Beyond the immediate security concerns, the shooting also highlighted the need to address the root causes of political violence. This included tackling the spread of misinformation and online radicalization, fostering greater civility and respect in public discourse, and finding ways to bridge the deep partisan divides that plagued American society. Combating extremism, a multifaceted challenge. The shooting in Butler underscored the growing threat of extremism in America. The shooter, radicalized online, was consumed by a toxic ideology that fueled his hatred and violence. Combating this threat, experts warned, required a multi-pronged approach. Law enforcement agencies, for their part, needed to enhance their ability to monitor extremist groups, identify potential threats, and intervene before violence occurred. This included working closely with social media companies to identify and remove extremist content, and to disrupt online radicalization efforts. But the fight against extremism extended beyond law enforcement. It required a societal shift, a rejection of hateful ideologies, and a commitment to fostering a more inclusive and tolerant society. Educators, community leaders, and families all had a role to play in countering the narratives of hate and division. The road ahead, safeguarding democracy. The attempted assassination of former President Trump served as a chilling reminder of the fragility of democracy. It highlighted the dangers of unchecked political polarization, the corrosive effects of misinformation, and the ever-present threat of violence. In the aftermath of the shooting, many Americans grappled with a sense of unease, a feeling that their country was at a crossroads. The path forward, it seemed, was fraught with uncertainty and risk. But amidst the anxiety, there was also a glimmer of hope. The shooting, for all its horror, had the potential to be a catalyst for change. It could serve as a wake-up call, prompting Americans to confront their divisions, to reject extremism, and to reaffirm their commitment to the values of democracy. America's reckoning, a turning point. The events in Butler, Pennsylvania on that scorching July day sent shockwaves through the nation. The attempted assassination of a former president, a symbol of American democracy, forced the country to confront uncomfortable truths about itself. The shooting exposed deep divisions, simmering resentments, and the fragility of peace in a nation increasingly polarized. Whether this tragic incident would serve as a turning point, a catalyst for healing and unity, remained to be seen. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and potential pitfalls. But one thing was clear: America could not afford to ignore the warning signs. The shooting in Butler was a stark reminder that democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires active participation, a commitment to dialogue, and a willingness to bridge divides. The future of America, its ability to heal and thrive, depended on the choices its citizens made in the days, weeks, and years to come.